Thanks for logging on to myfoxhurricane.com. We continue to watch an intensifying Tropical Storm Idalia. What you're looking at here at the end of this loop, you see some of that lightning right near the center of the storm, and that's a big indication that this storm is getting stronger. You're actually seeing that burst of convection right towards the end of it right there. And so what we're going to be watching for as we go through the afternoon is those winds to be strengthening with this as that pressure continues to fall in this system. It's currently a tropical storm, but by later on Monday evening into early on Tuesday, we are expecting this to become a hurricane and then really start to intensify as it works its way over some very strong or very warm waters over the Gulf of Mexico. So now we have a hurricane warning that goes from the middle of Longboat Key on to the north through the Big Bend, south of there down to Inglewood. That is a hurricane watch at this point. So here's the 11 a.m. advisory. Top winds are at 65 miles an hour all weekend long. We were talking about that was just kind of hanging out and meandering down across the Caribbean, and that was completely expected. And we said it would start to work its way to the north, and now we're starting to see that northward motion with this. So it works its way into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. The big issue with this is anytime we're talking about a system that is essentially paralleling the coastline, those little deviations, little changes, little jogs, they can really spell big differences in what we experience here on the West Coast. So you don't focus necessarily on the line. It's anywhere inside this yellow shade. That's where the center of this storm could go. So it could just as easily go further to the east, much closer to us, really ramping up the impacts that we see, or it could even move a little bit further on towards the west, which would obviously lessen the impacts over us. And then on top of that, not only could it come closer to us, but then we're sitting on that right-hand side of the storm. So we're on that bad side of the storm, the stronger side of the storm. So that's where we're going to see more of the effects over us. And then we're also talking about an intensifying storm as it is working its way onshore. That's certainly something that you do not want to see, a storm that is continuing to ramp up in intensity. So you look at the various computer models and you are seeing that clustering of some of the models a little bit further on towards the west. And we've seen this back and forth shift in these models from run to run. But I'll tell you, some of the more accurate models, the GFS, the European, those are tending a bit further on towards the east, and that's why a big part of the reason you see that official forecast track, it is kind of sitting on that right-hand side or that eastern side of that clustering of the various computer models. So as far as those winds working their way onshore, so here we are heading into tomorrow evening, and you're already starting to see those tropical storm force winds across our southern counties. Our southern counties, they will start to experience this first. That really is late afternoon into tomorrow, heading into the evening hours. And then as we get in through the overnight hours, you see pretty much everybody experience those tropical storm force winds. We keep the hurricane force winds offshore. That is provided the track verifies. And we all know we can see little changes in this. A change more towards the east would bring the core of those hurricane force winds closer to our coastline. So you have to watch very closely because it is certainly within the realm of possibility that we see this shifting on towards the east. Nothing to indicate that at this point, but it's certainly a possibility. And we've seen that with many storms in the past, shifting a little more towards the right. It is a typical thing to see these systems wobble and move back and forth. They don't necessarily go right up that track line as we predict. So as far as that storm surge, 4 to 7 feet, 7 to 11 feet north of there. So our biggest concern will be at that high tide through the overnight hours between about, say, 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. That is when we will see probably our biggest issue from that storm surge. So a lot to cover with this, and things will continue to change as we go through the next 24 to 48 hours. And we'll keep you updated right here on myfoxhurricane.com.